Like we got a working live stream. Okay. Ah. So today is I guess, 12th? Correct. And it's about 7 minutes before 8 o'clock in the morning. 57 degrees, high 71, no rain. Partially cloudy a good part of the day, though. And today's Sunday, and then tomorrow, sunny, it goes to 74, and then Tuesday, 82. Then it goes to 86 degrees on Wednesday, cloudy day, and then it goes to 89 on Thursday. Then we start dropping for some reason, and it goes to 80 on Friday, 75 on Saturday, and allegedly raining on Sunday, but it's down to a 35% chance of rain. I don't think it'll rain. Or it might rain a little, I don't know. So the big news is after 21 hours of negotiations, they have no deal with Iran. Really no deal, because Hegseth went home and the Iranians went home. So they're not going back to a hotel or something and going to try again the next day. It's dead. Okay. Trump said he didn't care one way or another, if it goes or it doesn't go. The details of this are not revealed. There was talk that Trump said he was going to give him $6 billion of seized money from sanctions, but that has never been verified, so I wouldn't be too quick to go with that. There was a tremendous contention over having nuclear material. Iran said, you got no right to tell me that. I'm not doing it. And then Iran said, we're going to be in control of the Persian Gulf and, stuff like that. Where they went with ballistic missiles, I don't think they ever got that far. Okay, but if Iran's saying, no, we're going to do nuclear material, no, we're in control of the Persian Gulf, believe me, they never were going to sit there and say, oh, yeah, we'll control nuclear missiles. They never would sit there and say, yeah, we'll be nice to our people and we won't massacre them again. No, none of that. So they basically gave in, I don't think anywhere. I certainly don't know where they gave in. I don't see it. And they're saying the only way the war is going to stop is if America meets Iran's demands. See, we'll get into why they're thinking about that and what's going to happen next during the broadcast. And it's rather obvious what's going to happen next. Okay. So I'm going to go into the live stream, make sure we got ourselves a live stream. By the way, I believe the Iranians rejected anything and everything that the Americans presented. I think it was across the board denial of everything. Waiting to see if the sound's working. I'm afraid it may not. No, it's waiting to see if the sound's fine. All right. Thank you to the moderators. They really help. Okay. I'm going to put a fast post up in the live stream. It should take seconds. not minutes. No, wrong. That's it. No typos. Let me pin this. Got it. Okay. And we're all set on that. Okay, being a Old Testament, New Testament believing site, I'm going to do some praise. If anybody wants to join in, they're just going to join in. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right. Before we get into the future, let me go through some things that actually did occur since the last broadcast, because they were of reasonable interest. And we're actually in prophecy fulfillment stage, because this is Jeremiah 49, starting of verse 34 to the end of the chapter. Now, I am expecting to see dominoes with this. Right after Iran is finished, the next one will go, likely Edom, but we don't know. And the daughter of Babylon time is really at the door, but people don't know it, but it is. Several American warships are saying they went into the Persian Gulf, and there's multiple versions of what happened. In regard to this, Trump came out with an interesting comment that I wholeheartedly think was true. He said the Iranians do not have any ships that can lay mines, or I assume retrieve the mines, because they were all destroyed. Trump said he is beginning to remove the mines. Well, they could lay mines with submarines, and probably a go fast boat could take 2 mines or something with it and lay mines. You don't need a lot of mines. If you lay 25 mines, you're going to be creating a very frightening situation. I imagine there really are mines there. If Trump's talking like that, they probably observed them laying mines. Or maybe not. They could have done it secretly. The Americans and the Iranians did talk face to face. So I have to give it to Trump. He's knocked them down off of their discrimination that, the Americans are dogs and stuff like that. Uh, I believe that the Iranians gave up on their hard position about Israel attacking Lebanon and said they just don't want Israel attacking Beirut. Well, Beirut is where these lunatic Hezbollah is located. They're hard, so that's what's going on there. Today or tomorrow, they start negotiations with Lebanon. I think it's tomorrow. That may not be a waste of time, but it can't go anywhere. Let me explain to you why. It's not hard. There's going to be a negotiation in the White House, which is going to be, of course, America, Lebanon, and Israel. Now, I said Lebanon, not Hezbollah. So, whatever Lebanon says, Hezbollah doesn't care. Lebanon's not going to do anything to them. Historically, they haven't. So, you're negotiating with the completely wrong people. How are you going to get anywhere? Whatever Lebanon agrees with doesn't mean Hezbollah is going to pay any attention. And unless they got the wherewithal and the guts to go in and wipe out Hezbollah, which they don't, Hezbollah is not going to give the Lebanese government their weapons because the Lebanese government asked for it. They'll say, try to take it and see what happens to you. And they probably go around killing the wives and children of these people in the Lebanese army that try to attack them. They're pretty dirty dog, dangerous, vicious, more than anything. So I don't know what this is supposed to do. It's just a waste of time. There's a massive amount of empty oil tankers on the way to America to fill up with oil. And the United States is going to load up, I think this is Trump talking, to load up with the best and sweetest oil and gas anywhere in the world. We have more oil than the next two largest oil economies combined and higher quality. It's all true. We are waiting for you. Quick turnaround, President Trump. Okay, so yeah, he's he's going to run his oil reserves down. Now you got to understand what Trump's not telling you is this going to raise the price of oil for gasoline for you at the pump in the United States? Oh yeah, no, you can't. I don't know how you could not be the case. It's definitely going to happen. I don't know by how much. It might be $1. I mean, it might not be very much, but that's what's going on here. So Trump's defying the Iranians with their closure of the Red Sea and saying, well, I'll just tank them up. And I'm pretty sure he's trying to make arrangements in Venezuela. I would think he's an idiot not to. Canada is probably kicking in, although I don't know. They got a lot of gas. While everybody was watching Iran, China did a dirty move, not that major, but in the South China Sea, without firing a shot, Beijing or China uh, dredgers have been hard at work developing an artificial island 400 kilometers off Vietnam's coast. So that's 240 miles. That's pretty good distance, okay? That's not next door. With astonishing speed. Even more shocking is that the world has largely ignored China's blatant power grab. Vietnam's first strong formal protest did not come until March, more than 5 months after the dredging began. As it has in the Philippines for years. China is conducting, they're calling it lawfare, and rehearsing kinetic warfare in plain sight. The international community should counter China's actions as at Antelope Reef to avoid another South China Sea crisis. So what China does with these, they apparently pull the surface of the ocean up. They probably found a spot where the water wasn't that deep, and they pulled up a lot of the ocean, and they start piling it. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know exactly how it works. Maybe they were using concrete too. I don't know. And they just go up and up, and they build themselves an island. Uh, Now, I am assumptive that this island has no vegetation. It may be over time it'll grow if they plant stuff, but it's probably sand, not fertilized soil. So I'm not so sure what'll happen, but maybe something will grow. I don't have any idea. I don't know. And it's not going to have any water. Where would the water come from? So what they are doing is they're building military bases, and they put things like artillery and missiles and radar, barracks, warehouses, storage. They could put aircraft. They could build a wooden pier and dock boats up there. They make it an active fort. There's no civilians. There's no industry. There's no plants to blow up or warehouses or any of that. And they strategically get themselves bases. So instead of, like in World War II, to get a strategic base at a strategic location for the war, where it would help you with aircraft and naval vessels fighting the enemy, you had to take one over. But China doesn't take anything over these days, they just build them. So they could control massive amounts of ocean, you know, huge amounts. So now they're expanding, um, and everybody's looking the other way. So this is not a good thing. Okay. This is curious. I don't really understand what effect this is going to have, but I'll explain it to you. It sounds silly. Iran has installed roadblocks in front of the buried nuclear facility entrances, reports the Institution for Science and International Security Analysis, and satellite images captured over the entrances to Iran's underground Isfahan nuclear facility. I think when they say roadblocks, they're not meaning, 6 soldiers with a jeep with machine guns. What they're meaning is barriers that would stop vehicles from getting to the nuclear facility. Let me explain a couple of different things. And I got into this previously with you, I think, yesterday. By the way, yesterday the broadcast ended abruptly. My tablet, my Android Samsung that I was using is broken. It didn't fall. It didn't short out. It's just, it was showing me like when I'd start the live stream, I was 7 or 10 minutes into it. The thing wouldn't reverse. It wouldn't stay on the right vertical position. I gotta read something over here. I don't know what's looking like here. Hold on. I gotta read this. Hold on. Oh, no, it's okay. I'm using my good phone that I don't use for phone. I just use it for broadcasts. And it works really good. But I lost that Android. It's no longer reliable. I can't put a broadcast on it. It's going to fail. So we didn't get cut off by YouTube or the internet. What happened is the thing just went on its own to shut itself off, but it didn't shut itself off. It was just something there spinning. And then everything was buffering and messed up, and the broadcast went, and I couldn't even shut it off. I had to just shut it down and wait for YouTube to close it out. So if any of you are moved to help me get another device, another tablet, I'd appreciate it. I don't think I'm going to get another Android Samsung because it was very disappointing. It did not have a long life at all. And, so I got to figure what I'm going to get. But it'd be nice if I could raise funds to buy another device. Now I don't have much of a backup with this with this phone, and so anyway, I think you know what I'm trying to say. Okay. So I think the roadblocks, you see, America could come in with heavy equipment, right? Think about it. Special forces and helicopters and jets clear the area. That takes a couple hours, 4 hours. Then what happens? Then special forces comes in on helicopters and they use the big helicopters to carry heavy equipment like bulldozers, cranes, big buckets that could, excavators of different type. And they get by the missile site and they just start digging, right? And then the bulldozers move the dirt and the debris away. And then when they hit concrete, they could just use an explosive directly on the concrete, right? I'm not talking little explosive. I'm talking, a 200, 300 pound right on it. Boom, and they could put blast mats over it to direct the energy all into it. So then but I don't think they're going to hit the concrete really. They might hit a concrete wall or something, but they're not going to hit the concrete on the roof because they're going to probably go in where it is. It's probably at the base of the mountain. It may not be, but if it's not at the base of the mountain, then you're going to see a road that goes up to where the entrance is, or they don't have a road. So you could bring heavy equipment and just open it up. The other thing I said you can do is bring heavy equipment and just cover up all the doors and entrances with, you know, 20, 30, 40 feet of debris, right? And, pound it down. And they could come and excavate it, but you could also come and bomb their heavy equipment, and then the excavation stops. So it's an interesting game that can be played, cat and mouse sort of thing. That's what I think is meant by a roadblock, not like a highway patrol roadblock, where the cop comes over to your car and looks in your car. That's generally they're looking for a fugitive, a kidnapping, some criminal that just committed a crime, things of that nature. It's not that type of thing. This is like a barrier. So they're afraid of heavy equipment coming. So they're saying that it's Navy destroyers, I believe the count is supposedly two, are working to de-mine, in other words, remove or destroy or deactivate the mines in the Straits of Hormuz. The Iranians mined an area furthest away from Iran, forcing the ships to travel close to Iran, which makes, hurting the ship very easy, charging them tolls. CENTCOM is saying additional forces to join efforts to, in coming days, Iranian outlooks dismiss fake news after Trump says all of Iran's mining boats are lying at the bottom of the sea. I think Iran had a handful of mine laying boats, and they probably are at the bottom of the sea, but they can use other boats. The Central Command is announcing that it's working to create a safe shipping route in the Straits of Hormuz. Well, that's ill-defined. We don't know what they mean. According to the report, operations have begun on the ground to clear the shipping lanes of naval mines laid by the Iranian regime. 2 American destroyers crossed into the Straits of Hormuz as part of these activities. The IRGC is saying the Straits of Hormuz is closed and will remain closed. Trump has only one choice, which is to surrender to our demands, the Iranian demands. So, talking like this about Trump is not actually making Trump feel warm and mushy inside. So there's rumors going around. One rumor is that the Iranians threatened the destroyers and they turned around and left. And then another version is they never really went in. They just were acting like they went in. And then another version is one turned around and one didn't. And, nobody really knows what happened. So did they really enter the Persian Gulf? I don't know. The Iranians would likely fire on them and they would likely get a hit because they got all sorts of things they could fire at them, missiles, drones, things of that nature, and at the same time send a large amount of go-fast boats after them with torpedoes and shoulder-fired weapons. Look, an anti-tank weapon, shoulder-fired, hitting a Navy destroyer is not going to be a lot of fun for the destroyer. It's very dangerous for the destroyer. So we need to now, I mean, I think those are the major events, but since we're in such uncharted waters, let me quickly take a quick look in my social media and see if things have popped off. I expect they will. This is a foreign language. Hold on. Trump didn't immediately start bombing Iran. Trump is bringing a large amount of military equipment in and has been since he started with the negotiations. The air bridge, it's called. So Trump is pulling in a lot of equipment to the Middle East, and I'm pretty sure he intends to use it. So, he might have been sleeping. They woke him up, and is today what they call Easter Sunday? Let's let me take a look. That would explain why Trump's not attacking, but I don't know. That's churchianity stuff. When in 2026 is Easter Sunday? Oh, it's past. Okay, that was over a week ago. So it's not Easter Sunday. So I don't know what Trump's up to. Oil prices, will cover that right now, and gold. We'll get the gold real quick. Let me refresh, make sure I get it current. Nothing spectacular at all, because this all happened on a Sunday and people aren't trading and stuff like that. 47.47 on gold, 4,747 an ounce, and silver 75.76. So that's rather not any remarkable change at all. And the price of oil here, if you want to get that without any aggravating idiot ads, you go to oil price, not price as, oil price, one word.com. The WTI, that's American, is 96.57, so it's creeping up a tiny bit. And the Brent, which you could think of as Europe, is 95.20. So the Brent, which is supposed to be more than the WTI, is actually lower. So it's just a weird, weird show, okay, with the gas. The people They, this, just taking the basic stock exchange, um, they like to close on Friday. They don't like big movements in the market after Friday in the morning. By lunchtime, they want all the big movement in the New York Exchange to stop because the people that have money that invest, it's rigged. Remember this: if they're not able to fix it and rig it for their gain, it doesn't exist. They don't have it. Okay, they won't do it. All right. So what does happen is they shut the remarkable trading off most of the time, the majority of the time. They do Friday afternoon craziness very rarely when they want to make a lot of money and take people off guard. But people have a tendency that have a lot of money that work that Friday afternoon they flake out. Like, what do they do? Like, they go out to lunch and they come back and then they wrap it up. They sign checks, whatever, and they go home. They don't like to stay. They want to beat the traffic and they just basically go home. A lot of them don't do much. Um, Friday afternoon is a rough time to catch business owners and very high ranking executives. This position of being able to flake out on Friday generally just applies to owners. It doesn't apply to managers and presidents. Although in a publicly traded company, a president can be construed as something close to an owner, you know. So they go home. You see, the wealthy people in America and also in Europe consider it lower class to work. They'll sit on a board of directors, okay, and they'll have an office in the company headquarters, and they'll have a secretary or maybe an assistant secretary as well. And they'll come into the office maybe 12 days a year, maybe three. 12 would be rather on the high side. They would be coming in that much, maybe if there was some merger and acquisition. Even then, I don't think so. 3, 4 times a year. They have an office, but they don't go there. If they go there for a meeting to sign stuff, and they're there for 2 or 3 hours just chewing the fat, and then they take off. They don't even have things in the desk. They don't know anything. The office is a joke. Now, what goes on that shouldn't with these corporations is that people that are very wealthy, we're talking billions, sit on the board of directors of multiple companies, and they direct the companies to do business with their other companies. So let's say they have a company that employs 211,000 people, and they got 12 facilities. They have another company that makes paper goods, so they'll buy all their paper goods from that company. Okay, that's putting it in a very immature way, so you can understand what goes on. Now, that's perfectly legal in the United States. So they try to work that way. All right. Then they do trades and deals. Oh, you buy my paper or my this or my that, and then I'll buy your product. And, you know, that's what they do. They're high level Satan bots, and they just make dirty deals with each other. And that's their job. And their other job is to hire the president, vice president, chief executive officer, maybe uh, help figure out who sits on the board of directors, hire the legal counsel, precious little of anything else, you know. They normally won't get involved in day to day, and they get paid, but their real money is investing in the company, and they have the stock, and what's that worth? So it's a rigged thing with the stock markets. Okay, it's all rigged. So they don't like to do plunging deals after lunch on Friday. Okay, what I have seen these jerks do when I used to have a ticket tape many years ago is uh, a minute or so before closing, they'll buy or sell a massive amount of stock, you know, like 25 million shares or something. Okay. And they do it just seconds before the bell rings. When the bell rings, that's it. There's no new ticket tape entries. The old ones are still there. And people might get concerned about it, but it happened. It's too late. And they got to wait till the next day at about 9:30 in the morning to do anything about it. You're working 9:30 to 3:30 at the New York Stock Exchange. I had a summer job once when I was a kid in college as a page on the floor of the exchange. Uh, and that was one of the most fun jobs I had as a kid because I saw it, what was going on. I was working feet away from guys that were winning yacht races and were super wealthy, you know. They used to bring water guns to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and have water gun fights. These guys had so much money, and it just kept coming in every day, every week, every month, like there was no tomorrow. And they had everything. They didn't have much need for materialism. This is how if it was Valentine's Day and they had to get presents for their girlfriends and their wives, they would send an assistant out to go to one of the expensive jewelers and buy different presents. Earrings is conventional, or you may get them a wristwatch, a gold diamond wristwatch. They didn't get concerned over shopping and buying these exclusive things. It was a waste of their time. They much rather would rather have a water fight. They really did. They didn't care about that. They had it all. They didn't care about having a big house. They had several big houses. They were used to having a big house. They had servants. They had Rolls Royces, Ferraris, anything they wanted in the car realm. They had. They had chauffeurs. They didn't really have security people back then. That didn't exist. What they sometimes would do is they'd hire a chauffeur that was 6'2" or 6'4", that was a bodybuilder, or he used to play football, or he retired from the Marines, or some sort of tough guy. So if they got into a tizzy because they were getting drunk in a bar or a restaurant, the chauffeur would come in and get him out of there and be very intimidating. So the person that they were ready to have a fist fight with, wouldn't do anything. That was the extent of it, you know. Or if there was a traffic issue, not an accident, and the guy got out of his car and started screaming, well, then the chauffeur would get out of his car, and it was almost like Lurch getting out, you know. That's what some of them did. That's all they did. They didn't have this security issue back, you know, we're talking 60s, you know, even into the 70s. They didn't have any problems with that. They, you know, so today you're not seeing a lot of movement in oil prices with the futures trading because they're not working. They're doing whatever they do on the weekend. These guys don't live to work. They don't. These are guys with millions and millions of dollars, okay? Women too. They don't live to work. They don't, most of them don't care about shopping. They'll do mostly home shopping if they gotta shop. They'll try to have their assistant do it. They get no pleasure of walking into a store like Saks or, you know, Neiman Marcus and buying the most expensive coat in the place. Or said, they don't care about that. What they care about would be buying the Neiman Marcus chain of stores. That's the level they work on. Okay. So they'll, you know, a lot of them will be into golf, let's say, right? So they'll join some elite golf clubs. What do they call it? A golf club, I guess, not the stick. Um, you know, where they have a golf course and a bar and a restaurant and stuff like that. A lot of times, that's what they have. So they'll go shoot golf early in the morning before they get drunk, and then they'll meet at the clubhouse. They'll take a shower. Or they won't, and they'll just have drinks, maybe a light lunch or a lunch, and then go home. The rich that actually do go to work will usually break the week up Tuesday or Wednesday. Wednesday is popular, where they'll play golf in the morning and they come in at lunch or after lunch to the office and they stay a few hours. They take care of what they got to do in a few hours and they go home. This is the big treat for the business guy that's established and has steady business and he's making a comfortable living or wealthy living. But not that wealthy. They go into they go in late on Wednesday. They break the week up and they play golf. Okay, some of them may not play golf. They'll just go in late Wednesday, and then they try to leave early on Friday. So they don't work that much, but they do work. Now, some of the guys, when they're really serious businessmen, they'll wake up at 4 in the morning, drive to the office early, get in by 5 or so, and the people don't get in till about 8. So they can work and get things done when nobody disturbs them. That's what you see a lot of, you know. They look down on working, okay? Women in the older days would never work. They would just take care of what? Charities. They played golf too. Frequently they played tennis. The women were more likely to do tennis than they were golf. Some of them would ride horses. The men played tennis too. Going to the gym back then wasn't that big of a popular thing. it happened, but they weren't all that into it. Running, jogging in the 60s, it really wasn't that popular. What were, some of the people would shoot hoops, get a basketball court, but they didn't do that. The wealthy wouldn't, it was tennis, golf, and horses. That was about it. They liked boats, they had motor yachts, they liked sailing, they had both of that. They liked going to the horse races, they'd buy their own race horses and run them. They really liked that. But these guys don't like working. If they're so wealthy, they get a company, well, I don't know, it's a steel company or something like that. They're not going to go run the steel company. First of all, they're morons. They're just Satan bots. So they're bureaucrats. They're deranged. Being a pervert is probably a 95% probability for these people. I'm serious. I know what I'm talking about. They are that they're Epstein clients, and they're more involved with things like that. They're more involved with going to watch car races or watch opera. They get into different things. They'll be a supporter of a opera or a symphony orchestra, or they'll back a Broadway show, and they're looking to get involved in things like that. They're not looking to kill themselves, and that's what they do. They have most of the demands on them and their time are not what is like for even a wealthy person, a regular wealthy person. For instance, they're lawyers that today are probably making $1,500 an hour. When there's something to talk about, that's not serious. Like, it's not a lawsuit, big problem. It's other stuff like a real estate acquisition, a building acquisition, something with stocks, um, things of this nature. Um, they generally go to the guy's mansion. They'll send, usually the senior partners would be unlikely to go, but they would send a junior partner out there and go review the documents with the guy. So a lot of that stuff happens there. Then the tailors and the home shoppers and the jewelers, they come to the house. If he needs a car, he probably will go to the showroom because he wants to see them. But if not, they'll come to the house. Architects for the next home or office, they come to his house. So almost everybody that is doing business with him, these people, is coming to the house. So they could, home shoppers, the furniture people come to the house, the carpet people, when he's picking something out. He wants to remodel a room or something, or add a room, they come to the house. The doctors, they'll come to the house. Now, there's a limit to that. If it's a serious diagnostic issue, they can't do it in the house. Uh, so, and that's the world that Trump lives in. So they get a steel company or an oil company. They're not going to run it. They're going to spend time talking to their friends, their associates, people in the oil business, and look for somebody that they could bring in and make as president of the oil company. Steal them from another company is very popular. Get somebody that, was involved in a merger and acquisition and just left the company because he got his golden parachute. He's very wealthy, and his time with the company is up. Okay, it's over. He's done, and he got out with he might have got out with 10 or 15 or $25 million, and he's sitting home, collecting butterflies or something silly, and they get him and they recruit him, and that's like how Trump sees himself. Sadly, he does that while he's president. People don't really realize it, but he basically gets the right people, which is, the Secretary of War, the various, heads of his cabinet, and they run the country, and he only gets involved for publicity, or if something's going wrong, like the Iranian war. Now, he's working over that. He doesn't want to. Now, is Trump likely to say, okay, the Iranians are crazy, we accomplished our goal, we're leaving. If Europe wants oil, they can go in and take care of the Persian Gulf. No, he won't do that. Why? All the fighting stops. Let's leave prophecy aside. We're trying to look into Trump's mind. They're going to tell Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, you're paying $2 million a ship in and out, and if we find out you're selling oil using the US dollar, we're going to close the Persian Gulf to you, and you're not going to be able to use it. So it's going to hurt America badly with the demand for US dollar, drive the value of the dollar down. Inflation's going to soar, and people are going to be a lot poorer. Trump doesn't want that. Could Trump open the Persian Gulf and then just leave? No, because the day he leaves, they'll close it again. You understand? The only way out of this for Trump and Netanyahu is to stop the missile cities from launching missiles, and to stop the mobile-less missile launches from operating. They hide inside a tunnel in a mountain, at the bottom of the mountain, where you can't blow it up. So the mountain could be 1,000, 2,000 feet high. They keep the missiles and the launchers in there. They put missiles on the launchers. They drive them out. They stop. They go 200 meters. They stop. They launch their missiles. They go right back in the mountain. Can't get them. They're fast. One way to do it is to manufacture a lot of 30,000-pound bombs, and I mean a lot. And they're probably at least $1 million a bomb, so I'm not sure he's going to do that. The other way is to use special forces to approach these facilities from outside and tamper with them somehow. Listen, let's just be civil. They find the duct where the air is coming in. Okay? There got to be a duct to bring air in. Okay? Or several. And they find them, special forces, and just start dropping tear gas canisters in there, a lot. I mean, big ones. So the air vent is now distributing tear gas. And what are they going to do? They're going to come out. And when they come out, they're captured. The doors are open. Special forces go in there with 4 or 5 backpacks full of explosives. They place them in strategic locations, specifically blowing the missiles up, which will be a mountain of secondary explosions, and there'll be nothing left of the place. It won't be usable anymore. I don't believe it'll be repairable. It will be garbage. You got to rebuild it.
All right.
That's one of the fears they have about the special forces coming in. They're very afraid of things like this. And them putting roadblocks in is, to me, rather obviously, is designed to stop heavy equipment to come in, and not trying to stop taxi cabs or, passenger buses or anything like that. They're trying to stop heavy equipment. You can get a big steam shovel device in there with, the big bucket and start raking and dig yourself a hole into the missile city. Then you get a microphone in there or a speaker and you say in Farsi, their language, you got an hour to come out or we're going to start dropping all sorts of interesting things in here. They could also flood them through the duct. I don't think you'll see that because there's a water shortage. They have gas that the military has used in years past, decades, where it's really for not to use in America, it's somewhere else. It's like a tear gas. It makes the eye tear and you get choked up, irritated in the larynx and all of that. But it causes uncontrollable and immediate releasing of your bowels and your bladder. Did I say that nice? I think in the 60s with the Vietnam War protests, it was used a couple of times in America, and it was considered in poor taste, when people didn't like that being used. The idea is to break up the protesters, send them home, so their clothing stinks, they're embarrassed, and they They leave. They go home. They don't stay there. Okay, they're also a mess. And they go home. They take a shower. They clean up, have some water, and probably in 3 hours, 3 hours, they're pretty much back to normalish. That would make staying in the shelter pretty difficult. They could send 3 or 4 IRGC lunatics in the shelter with them with machine guns and say, if anybody leaves, we're going to kill you. But they would want to leave too. If you want to take it to another level, they could drop cyanide, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're predominantly going to use some sort of a toxic agent. They could put him to sleep. They could use the gas to make him go to sleep. There's a lot of options. The air intakes can't be that secret. They also likely have air exhaust ducts because they got a generator underground that's burning diesel and it has to eject the spent gases. So it's like a big exhaust pipe on a car that goes up to the surface. So there's a lot of ways you can, the special forces could find it. They, if you send 8 or 10 of them, or maybe 25 to a big facility, and they start walking around with instruments and stuff like that, they're going to figure out who's on first and what's on second pretty quick. And then they could start executing a number of different possibilities to get the people to evacuate. The generator can maybe be disabled from the surface. It depends. The generator could have a sealed system, okay, where there's an air, like the motor is encased, let's say, like in a submarine. The motor wasn't really encased in a submarine. They had air in the system that the submarine would use to take in, but they had the exhaust gases going out. They didn't want the exhaust gases in the submarine. Even if the submarine was on the surface, they wanted those things eliminated, Now that's not necessarily such a different animal. Let me explain. The World War II submarine, which I studied a lot, it would have about 24 hours of air. Today, diesel submarines get several days. They may get up to 5 days of air. Okay. Back then, because they're probably putting it in a tank, a pressurized tank, and they have a release system. Back then, they had about 24 hours. So if the guy had his air, in the submarine full, and he had a reasonable amount of battery charge, he could go down, and the enemy would be dropping, depth charges, barrels of explosives at him, and they would maybe hang around for a few hours, and then the ship would take off. They really couldn't tell if they damaged the submarine, if the submarine got away, and they were bombing an area and the submarine was 12 miles away by now, and they didn't know what direction or where or what, different things. And you also run out of depth charges. So they couldn't sit there and just, fire an unlimited amount of depth charges. They didn't have them. They had so many, So if the submarine took an altitude and they just ran silent, they shut all the noise down, everybody was quiet, nobody was banging tools. Back then, they probably were not sure where the heck the guy was. So they would start with patterns of depth charges. But you see, back then, the sub could maybe go down to 300 feet, an American sub. That was about it. Okay. But today, I don't know for sure, but I think it's probably around 1,000 feet. So if you're going to run a pattern with depth charges, you've got to have a whole lot more depth charges than they had back then, because you got to cover this whole distance of water, right? The way the naval mines work today is they're under the surface. They have a battery that probably lasts for months. The battery could be the size of, the trunk of a car or something like that. It probably isn't. It's probably like 2 or 3 car batteries put together or something like that. And what it does is it's pinging. And when it gets magnetic signal, in other words, there's a ship overhead. Now, how far in the water is it? Well, it could be 7 feet. It could be probably more like 40, 50 feet. So they're not going to hit hulls of ships they don't want to hit. And when the ship goes over it, and it may need to be large to trigger this, the mine will blow up, and the force of the explosion can break the hull of the boat. It pushes the boat up out of the water. These are big explosives. Pushes the boat out of the water, and the boat could break. Now, if the boat, a tanker I'm talking about, and if the tanker is full of oil, it's much likely not to break, believe that or not. But it'll still be disrupted up out of the water, but it may not break. Okay, it just doesn't necessarily have to break. So, the point of that is keeping the ship full of oil is going to help it take the blast, but it could still damage the boat severely. It's going to depend on the boat, how big the boat is, how heavy the boat is, how sturdy the boat is, and stuff like that. They're dangerous. These mines can blow the boat up out of the water. You're talking about a 500-600 foot boat could be up out of the water. It can throw it up out of the ocean, and it crashes back down. I mean, that's not good for a boat, And it may come down sideways. These are very powerful things. There's no limit as to how big you want to make the naval mine. 1,000 pounds, 2,000, 4,000, 5,000. A 5,000-pound mine is unbelievable. A 2,000-pound mine is usually all you need. That's usually going to do the job. So, these are likely going to cause fatalities. Very rapid sinking, like seconds. What America needs, America has. They're called mine sweepers. They go in, they find the mine, and they retrieve it. Another way to do it is to blow it up. You're generally just causing a water disturbance. The mine sweeper could capture the mine and tow it or I don't know what they're going to do, detonate it or whatever. I don't think Trump is likely to send divers down there to deactivate the thing. It's probably booby trapped, and I don't think he's going to do that. Causing detonation is a good way to get rid of it. And you got to be careful that you got them all. But here's Trump's problem. The Iranians will sink the minesweepers. It's not hard. How? Go fast boats, of which they have thousands left, I think. At least 1,000. Missiles. Torpedoes from the go fast boats. Drones. The go fast boats simply could just, the guy on the boat could have a Katyusha shoulder fired rocket and fire it at the minesweeper. Minesweepers are usually like 120-foot boat or something like that. Not a big boat. Anti-tank, shoulder fired anti-tank missile would do it. A Katyusha would do it. In reality, the go fast boat with a 20-millimeter gun could just put a good long burst into the minesweeper, and there would be curtains for it. You see the complexity of what Trump has. So what's the game plan? Well, you send a few destroyers out there with some minesweepers. The destroyers got 16 missile tubes per boat, so they could do a certain amount of takedown. But if there's 15 missiles and 35 drones headed for the minesweeper, it makes life difficult for the destroyers. Now, do I think the Pentagon has a good workable plan to get rid of these mines? Yeah. Child's play for them. They're, guys that have been in the military for 8-9 years would know how to do that. The Navy, it would be easy for them. The admirals and the captains and stuff, they know what to do. Well, they'll come up with a plan, and they know exactly what kind of mines they are. If they don't, they'll send divers down to look at them and take underwater pictures. But they know what they got, and they'll deal with it. But it's dangerous because if they're using any kind of naval vessel to deal with it, the Iranians can and will shoot at them. The last thing that Donald wants to see happen is a destroyer with 235 sailors get sunk. A missile with a warhead of, 200 pounds hitting a destroyer, that's probably it. Probably secondary explosions immediately and fires, and there'd be a mad panic rush to get off the boat. Few would make it, and the boat would go down quick, I'm pretty sure. You never know, though. A double hit, like a missile and a drone, or 2 missiles, and that's it. You could hit a boat with enough ordnance, it just goes down. You hit it and you count to 10, and the boat's on the way down already. boats could sink over 3 days or a week even, and boats could sink fairly immediately, depending what you hit it with. Iran really doesn't have any navy left except their go-fast boats. Trump is still dreaming of a regime change and him controlling the oil with his buddies at Chevron or whatever he's going to use. And it ain't going to happen. That's not prophecy. Trump taking it over. No, no. A likely occurrence is Iran may sit there and twiddle their thumbs and see if Trump wants to change his mind. I haven't seen them attacking yet since this was over. In other words, they didn't come back and then missiles were flying all over the Middle East. So let's take a quick look and see if they are flying now. It will tell us a lot if we see Iran doing something. Doing nothing tells us they're trying to figure out what to do. The fact that they're not attacking makes me think they're still talking, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what they got to talk about. That doesn't make a lot of sense. The Iranian foreign minister spokesperson, I don't know if he was at the negotiation or not, but he said during the negotiations, the 10 point plan of Iran and the one protected by the U.S. were discussed. An understanding was reached regarding some of the issues, but disagreements remained on 3 topics, and therefore the negotiations ended without an agreement. Negotiations were conducted in an atmosphere of distrust and suspicion. Contacts with Pakistan are ongoing. The diplomatic path has not been closed, and it remains a constant means of safeguarding our national interests. Official Iran media, there is no intention to coordinate a new date for another round of talks. They say that, maybe they're not serious. Let's keep reading. They're saying the ball is back in Trump's court. Well, we haven't seen anybody start the attacks again yet. Trump's discussing a naval blockade on Iran. There we are with blockades, Zechariah 12. It's not a blockade on us, but we're getting closer. Uh, we hit 200 targets in Lebanon in the past couple of days. Okay, that's not giving me any indication of anything, but it's starting to look, well, let's see what it's starting to look like. I don't know. It looks like Trump wants the straits open and he wants to get rid of the mines. And he might be thinking, if I don't bomb Iran, they may not bomb my neighbors in the Middle East, and we can just run that way. The KC-135 American fuel refueling tankers are back at Ben Gurion Airport, quite a few. So that makes me think they're getting ready to start the attacks again. America and Israel are trying to figure out what they're going to attack and how and with what. Trump is really liking the naval blockade idea. Iran's not going to like it. Look, Iran's telling him they're not giving up on the Persian Gulf. So the Straits of Hormuz is the Persian Gulf. So if Trump moves in that area and tries to open it up, the Iranians will start firing on the other Arab states. Trump, it, could fire on Israel. And Trump attended some wrestling show. Well, I worked through a company once. It was a security company, and these guys used to go to the wrestling matches. It was in San Francisco, I think, the Cow Palace, which was Daly City or something, right out of San Francisco. And I went with them one night. They practically insisted. So I went there with them. It was a joke. I mean, it was the furthest thing from real you could imagine. Being a martial artist, I saw right through it. And I don't know if these guys were dumb enough to think it was real. I didn't want to say anything to them. But, I mean, there's things you'd see that were kind of lowbrow, you might say, or some would say, that I would think would be entertaining, like the monster trucks and stuff like that, but not the wrestling. But apparently they liked it. Most of the time, they would go to after work, they would go to different bars and restaurants and drag me along, which I got sick of after a while. But they used to like to go to the top of the Bank of America building. That was one thing they liked. I got real tired of that. Uh, the Iranian side is saying things like this: the U.S. has failed in diplomacy just as it has failed on the ground, and the failure will continue until the end, God willing. The uranium they failed to steal in the operation of Isfahan and returned from defeated, so they're talking trash, the Iranians. What are they saying now? Let's see. Iran, that has received very strong backing and is prepared for a strong war with the U.S. Yeah, backing from China and Russia. Meanwhile, our pilots are making up for many missed. Okay. Europe Airport Association. This is what happened here. Well, this is interesting. The Strait of Hormuz remains closed for another 3 weeks. Flights will be disrupted. They're not saying that it's closed for 3 weeks. They're saying the flights will be disrupted for 3 weeks. The European Airport Association sent an urgent letter to the European Commission and threatened that if the disruption in the Strait of Hormuz continues, the green continent will face a significant shortage of aviation fuel. That's what they're concerned with. Okay, that's very real. Very real. It's not going to be that the price of the aviation fuel is going to go up. It's going to be that there ain't none. And that means there'll be rationing. And that is a horse of another color. Hold on a minute. I'm having trouble translating that. Okay. They're saying, who is this? This is the Iranian guy again. We agreed several issues, but regarding 2 to 3 important topics, there were differences of opinion. Like, I could tell you what they are. One is definitely, no, we're going to keep the control of the Persian Gulf and charge tolls. The second is going to be, no, you're not telling us what to do with our nukes. And the third is, we want complete sanction relief. Some of the Orthodox Jews think this is a good thing because there was a tremendous amount of fear that Trump was going to, what do they call it, taco, fold to punk out and give them what they want, and they would just be rebuilding with the clear intent of killing the infidels, which is everybody, basically. So, but them and a few of their Arab friends, and that's it. I think why are they not attacking? I think Trump is not that interested in just going around and bombing uh, any old site, any site in Iran. He's got a problem with the bridges and the electrical generators. So I think now he learned to keep his mouth shut, and he's not going to talk about I'm going to hit the bridges and I'm going to hit the missile cities. Well, I'm going to hit not the missile cities, the electric generators, and then they put human shields there. And Hamas is starting to do that too now with the human shields. So if Netanyahu keeps his mouth shut, and well, Netanyahu didn't talk, Trump did, and they just go attack targets without announcing it, it'll be much better for them. But he might be in the phase now where he wants to wait and then put more special forces in and try to destroy the missile cities. After the missile cities are destroyed, they got total control. They can do whatever they want. America and Israel. And that might be the time that the I believe somebody gave me the lion's share of what I need for the new tablet. It might be enough. I have to check prices and what device I'm going to get. I'm in good shape though with that. I'll need I don't know. I'm probably gonna need a little help more. Not a tremendous amount, but I think I'm close. It depends what I get, you know. If I get the iPad, they last years, much longer than that Samsung I tried. I got a really hot dog, top of the line Samsung tablet. I forgot what they called it. It was about a 10-inch screen, and I used it for the broadcast for a year and a half to 2 years, probably around a year and a half, and it's broken. It didn't drop, it didn't fall, it just broke. Internal. I mean, it's just, it's not working. It's doing stupid behavior. So I don't want to do more broadcasts on it because it will cause us to lose the broadcast. This is a phone I got a year and a half, 2 years ago, that I don't use as a phone. I don't put it in my pocket and carry it around. I just do broadcasts with it. It's a Samsung. It's a darn good phone. And I use that. So I'll have to replace that broken tablet, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. My wife tells me to get a Lenovo, which is like a computer, and you can pull the screen off and make it into a tablet. But they're real popular in Israel, and they're not that expensive, but it's a big, heavy thing. I don't know if I want to deal with that. I don't know. It's not on Android or Apple. It's on, I think, Windows. So Windows scares me because then you got to put firewalls in, and you got to put virus software in and antivirus software. And I don't know. Years ago, when I mean, many years ago, when I used to use Windows, I used to use two routers on the same internet provider. I had two, and it served as a good serious firewall. They If they got through one, they wouldn't get through the other. But I don't know if I want to do that anymore, and I don't know if I want to keep trying to stay up to date. And then if you do get a virus, you could have your hands full. So I'm not too high on Windows. Android is relatively secure by my experiences, and the Apple is relatively secured as well. So I prefer that. I'll have to look into it. I'm going to research. They've got a lot of tablets that I think can make a better picture, but not by much. The Apple, the iPad, the picture is really good if you want to look at the screen. My eyes are too bad to use the phone for anything really but hello, for talking or for broadcasting, because I don't need good stuff. But I need a tablet I could hold close to my face to get the eyes to work. But all right, so is it likely Trump is going to give up? No, not yet. No. Look, ultimately, prophecy is going to be fulfilled. Iran, which is Elam, Elam, in Jeremiah 49, starting in verse 34 to the end of the chapter, which is like roughly a half a dozen verses. It gets demolished or busted up, or things get so bad there, the people leave and they get scattered to every single country of the world. So that has to be before Jeremiah 30:11, which says that the Lord's going to destroy every nation he expelled the Jews into over the centuries, right? Going back to 2000. Well, over all the time, okay? So that's just about every nation. I think there's a few Arab nations that escaped that. And I doubt we ever got expelled to Antarctica. Not that anybody really lives there. A bunch of government people from different governments. So that's going to happen. Now, it could happen if the water, simply put, let me keep it just, simple, like fifth grade level. If you destroy the water desalination plants in Iran, which is suffering from acute drought, I believe you will accomplish your goal and they will have to leave quick. I believe the UN will make arrangements for many countries to take them in because they're Satan's chosen people. And again, one more reminder, Elam can also include Iraq, which is having a very severe drought and getting attacked by various sources and trying to attack Israel. Maybe you don't know this, I do talk about it, with their Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, and they go into Syria and from Iraq and they try to attack Israel, but they don't have their act together and the missiles don't reach us. Okay, and we counterattack them. And it's possible, but may or may not happen, a little piece of Syria. But you have Iraq over here, and you got the Persian Gulf, and then you got Iran up here. But at the top of the land, before you hit the Persian Gulf, you have Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman. And none of these countries are in the Bible named like that. They're not biblical countries. Jehovah has 70 countries. Now, the UN has, I don't know, 200 or so. I don't care what the UN has, okay? Let's concern ourselves with what Jehovah has, just 70. So there is no Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman in the Bible. It's Elam, because that's right where it is. So it's going to go too. So you're seeing it happen. Water desalinators, I know in Kuwait and I think Qatar and probably other countries have been hit already in the, what are we at, about 42 days or so, 43 days of the war. Several of them have been hit, not just refineries. So the water desalinators go, it's time to get out of Dodge. And the sword follows them till they get cut off. Let me tell you who hates Israel, okay? Just to remind you, okay? I'm not going to say all the Muslims. I'm going to give it to you by the country. Iran, obvious, right? Kuwait, they hate us. Qatar, remember the negotiations with Iran? They hate us. Bahrain, he's some stupid jerk king, but he doesn't like us at all. UAE, they act like they're our friends. They're not. And then you have Oman. They don't even look at us or talk to us. Okay, and then Saudi Arabia, they won't sign any Abrahamic Accords with them. They don't like Israel. There you have it. They don't like us. And I showed you that we'll be fighting in Jeremiah 50:51, the destruction of daughter of Babylon passages. And we're going to be fighting after redemption. So we're going to be clearing out these nations after we're redeemed. Because when you look at how we're fighting and the level of success we have, it seems to be post-redemption, everlasting life fighting, okay? So that's what's going on. And it also looks like it's very likely that this fuel shortage that they're worrying about could become massive. So Elam is going to be trashed. Saudi Arabia doesn't necessarily get trashed, but the refineries are getting blown up. So that, Iran's no oil, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia. The amount of oil that Jordan produces is minimal, but Jordan is Ammon and Moab gets destroyed, and Ammon doesn't really have much oil to speak of, or any, that's northern Jordan, it probably doesn't have any. They make it, they get friendly with Israel, and they make it, and they prosper. Okay, so the rest of these, and there are people living around Ammon that are believers that can't live in Israel because they don't have any roots of Judaism that they could establish to the government, and they're waiting to go into America, to Israel when the time is right. They're already here. I don't ever advocate people to do that because I don't see the Lord telling us to do that. And I don't see why we should have to worry, because he says not one Israelite's going to be left behind, even the bad ones. For his name's sake, he's bringing them, but everybody stops in the wilderness. And they enter into the bond of the covenant and pass under the rod. And the ones that are going to be lying, adultery, robbing, cheating, calling on unclean spirits, evil eye, cursing, all this nonsense, they're going to get the dirt nap in the desert, as far as I can tell. That's how I see it. And the rest are going to come into Israel. And if you are a believer in Yeshua, you are in Israel. How can you think you're not? You're worshiping Yeshua, right? Okay, Yeshua, and that's good. Okay, and Yeshua calls you his brethren, his brother. So you're his brother according to him, but yet you're not in Israel. Oh, can you support that with scripture? Heck no. There's no way to make that case. oh, we're not in Israel, we're with the church, but we stand with Israel. That's Satan making a monkey out of you. It doesn't say all the churches shall be saved, it says all Israel shall be saved. So he's got you denying your criteria needed for salvation. When Yeshua appears, Israel is going to get the everlasting life. But for crying out loud, you are Israel. Please come out of anesthesia. You're Israel. The scriptures are so strong about that. Here, let's read Ezekiel 47. Okay, this is happening after redemption and after the second Exodus. It's 3 verses. And don't get on my case because the churches don't teach this. You want to disregard everything in the Bible because the guys with the buildings on Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. don't teach it. I feel sorry for you. Ezekiel 47, verse 21. So shall you divide this land unto you according to the tribes of Israel. Now, this is probably us taking the land back, land we don't have now, right? And it shall come to pass that you shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you, that's Israel, unto you, Israel, and to the strangers that sojourn among you, which shall, future tense, shall beget children among you, and they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel. They shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that in what tribe the stranger sojourneth, there shall you give him his inheritance, saith Adonai Jehovah. So you're become incorporated into the tribe because you get the inheritance pertaining to the tribe you sojourn with. So you're basically in the tribes. Okay, and to the stranger that sojourn among you, which shall beget children among you, and they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel, they shall have inheritance with you among the children of Israel. Now, Jehovah is saying that the so-called Gentile believers, for lack of a better word, it doesn't make sense. The word Gentile means heathen. So do you have such a thing as a heathen believer? Gee, I don't know how you have that. But the Gentile word is often used to mean the Israelites that were in the diaspora outside of Israel in the days of the apostles that, were coming to faith. They weren't raised the way the Israelites were with the Torah and the Tanakh, the Old Testament and Moses' law and stuff. Okay, but you become Israelites. You're like the native born Israelites. So you're going to be incorporated into the tribes. How could you not be? Why do you have to be incorporated into the tribes? I'll prove it. Oops, I hit the wrong thing. Yeah, let me start over. Okay. Come on. There we go. We'll go to Revelation 21 and we're going to talk about New Jerusalem. What verse is this? Maybe 7? It's hard to remember all the verses. 7 is a miss, but I'm probably near. Let's see. It starts, I think we're here. Let's start with 21, Revelation 21:10. And he carried me away in the spirit, so he's like a vision or something, to a great and high mountain. That's the new Mount Zion where the temple's going to be. Well, okay, in this case, we're talking about New Jerusalem. Okay, a high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descend out of the heaven from God. Now, it may not be on that mountain because it's so big. Okay. That would be, I think, where the temple would be. Okay, let's continue. Having the glory of God, that's the Michael, the one that was with the glory of God of Israel with Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And her light was like unto a stone most precious, uh, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal, and had a wall great and high. So there's obviously some people that are meant to be kept out, the unbelievers, and had 12 gates, 12 tribes, 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, children of Israel. So you have an angel at each gate. Each gate's made out of a giant pearl. Do you know what that looks like? No, I mean, we think if a pearl got this big, it would be in a museum someplace. Imagine a pearl the size of a large tunnel entrance. I don't know what that is. I mean, it's a pearl, but what is it? I don't know. I never saw one. Did you? You know, you got a pearl that weighs 20 tons or something. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, that's how you go in, and there's an angel guarding it. So you could only go in through these 12 gates. Each gate's named after one of the tribes, and there's an angel there apparently guarding it. So it sure looks like if you're in the tribe of Asher or Naphtali, you're going to go through the Asher gate or the Naphtali gate, the gate of your tribe. So that's why you would be incorporated into the tribes. So you would know, you would have a gate to go through. Does that make sense? It's pretty easy. Now, the apostles don't have a gate named after them. They have the 12 foundations named after them. So they're like the New Jerusalem's built on their foundation. Okay? So they're greatly honored. And Yeshua and the glory of God of Israel both sit in New Jerusalem enthroned, emanating forth a tremendous amount of light. So the light comes from them. It's actually pretty cool, but you're not getting in. If you think there's a wall, hang on a second. Either I got a duplicate or let me check. I think I'll have to look. Wait a minute. These things usually have a number. This one is what? Okay, the problem with the getting a tablet has just been solved. You should pray for blessings for the person that solved that problem. I'm not going to give his name or her name, but you can pray for the person that gave me the blessing to get the tablet. It would be a good thing. And I'll probably go to work on that tablet later today. All right. So you're in Israel as a believer, for crying out loud, and it's so sad that they get deceived to thinking they're not in Israel. If they were in Israel, how do you and they understood it, how do you think they would respond to all these countries attacking Israel? They wouldn't be happy. They'd be way different. Again, when this is over, likely after this or during this, Iran finishing off, Yemen is going to go. Yemen is EDOM, Edom. Iran, and them over there is Elam, ELAM. EDOM is Yemen. And the central and southern Jordan is Moab, Moab. Northern Jordan is Ammon. Syria is Syria. Damascus will be a ruinous heap. Well, it's not yet happening, but it's busted up, but not a ruinous heap yet. But these things can happen after, because if it all happened before, Turkey got it, Egypt got it, all this happened before, then why would we be reading in Jeremiah 51 about all this fighting we're going to do? What would be the purpose of telling us that? Because it already would have been completed. See, now what happens in Zechariah 12 leads into this too. I know they don't teach this. I know that. But your Bible teaches it. Get your head into what your Bible teaches, not what these characters teach. I think we're in verse 8. Zechariah 12:8. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to disnow. Not 10. I think I was on 9. I need to go to 8. Yeah. Okay. So we're reading Zechariah 12, verse 8. In that day, that's the day of vengeance. That's the day that's like dividing between recompenses and redemption. Okay. And that day is probably in both of those periods. In that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Amen. And he that is feeble among them, that'd be like old people, you could say, yeah, like me, old people that can't walk good and they don't get around and they got walkers and canes and they're weak and, the stuff like that. Okay, that's the feeble among them at that day shall be as David. Now, we know who David is, Hamelech David, the King David, right? Okay. Now, was David a tough guy? He was a heck of a warrior. Oh, yeah. Did he kill a lion? Oh, yeah. Did he kill a bear? Yeah. Did he kill that sack of Goliath? What was he, 9-10 feet tall? As a kid, David whacked his head off and carried it around. He got him with a sling stone. So we're going to fight like David. Remember, I read you the scripture the other day. We're going to use sling stones. You're going to fight like David. David used a sling stone. Smooth rock, and it right in the forehead. Kaput Goliath. Okay. Maybe his name was Goliath. There's no TH sound in Hebrew, so it can't be Goliath and Galit or Goliath or something. I don't know. Nobody in Israel names their kid Goliath, so I don't know anybody named Goliath. I wouldn't call a frog Goliath. Okay. Shall be as David. Now we continue in the verse, and the house of David, that's the house of David, okay, they're in Judah, shall be, when it says a house of David, it's not a tribe. There's no tribe of David, okay. Shall be as Elohim, as the angel of the Lord before them. Well, the angel of the Lord before them, who would go first with Moses and Aaron, and they would know to pack up the tabernacle and follow him, but the glory of God of Israel, Michael, the most powerful angel. They'd follow him. And he killed something like 180,000 in one day, enemies of Israel, 180,000, and they're going to be like him, the house of David. So now you can understand why we're fighting so gloriously in the scriptures where it describes that in Jeremiah 50:51, and also in Zechariah 12, obviously. But the timing from Zechariah 12 indicates to us it's coming after redemption, because before that, the feeble ain't running around like cool, heavy-duty warriors like David, and the house of David ain't running around like gods. Redemption is the change there, where we get into everlasting life. It says that we will run, even children run and get tired. We will run and not get tired. I don't believe we sleep anymore. That's why you see Jerusalem is, the gates are open day and night, and it's emitting forth light day and night, because we don't need to sleep. They don't sleep up in heaven. They might rest, but they don't sleep. That I know of. I don't believe they do. He doesn't, God says he doesn't slumber or sleep. He doesn't do that. So you don't need it. But you still have death, because that's your scriptures. My people's days shall be like that of a tree. Trees are not, I don't know, immortal, you could say. They die eventually. They can live thousands of years, got it? But they die eventually. And it says a child shall die at 100. Well, that's a very mysterious scripture, but now you understand it. In New Jerusalem, it says there is no death. Okay? I can find it for you. It's in 21 or 22 Revelation. Let me pull it up for you, the verse number, and we'll read it together. Okay, I'll use my voice. What is the scripture verse in the book of Revelation that says there shall be no death, referencing New Jerusalem? It's Revelation 21, verse 4. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. This is specifically depicting New Jerusalem. So there's no more suffering and death. You're in there. There's gates that they're not going to be able to cross. Nobody's getting robbed or beaten up or raped or jumped or attacked or insulted or spit on. None of that. Okay, it's just peace. You got your 1,000-year rest. Okay. Now you got to think about that. 1,000 years. None of us can understand how long 1,000 years is. How could we? You know, you could when you get old, you can understand 100 years. I think, even though you may not make it to 100, you can understand that. But you're not here. You're not getting deteriorated and run down. You're the word everlasting is olam, O-L-A-M in English, olam. It's off into the future, an indefinite period of time. But it doesn't give you everlasting life. You could still die. Okay? I mean, it gives you everlasting life. It doesn't give you immortality, because if it did, then you wouldn't be reading in Revelation that there's no death there. You wouldn't be getting that. Okay? You wouldn't be picking that up, because it would have already happened. You eat of the tree of life and you drink of the water of life, and that brings it to you. The tree of life was in the garden, and God said, let's get them out of the garden before they eat of the tree of life and live forever like us. But when you make it into New Jerusalem, then you get that. There is no falling away from the people that make it into New Jerusalem. I cannot detect it in the Bible. Satan is loosed on the 8th day, you would say, after the millennium, which is, so to speak, the 7th day. 1,000 years is like a day unto the Lord. Okay. After the millennium's over, you're in the 8th day, Satan's released, and then he gathers the nations like the sand of the sea. Now, that probably didn't happen in 15 minutes. That probably took a good generation or 2 generations. But we're still in New Jerusalem. We still got not just, we got everlasting life, but previously from eternity, but previously we had a heart of flesh, and God put the law in our heart, and everybody shall know him, and that's how it is in New Jerusalem. And you can walk over to, Yeshua is there, the glory of God is there. You can see them. Yeah. If you said, Yeshua, could I come say hello? You say, get away from me, I'm busy. No, he's not going to be that way. You've never met a nicer, person than Yeshua. You don't know what I mean yet. But I think it would be, other than Jehovah, it would be impossible to meet a nicer person. Now, some of the others in heaven may be very similar in niceness too. Okay. The children of the Lord that were before the earth, But he is so super nice. I'm telling you, you have no idea. You'll melt. He's really a sweetheart, okay? Now, he's never gotten into the, warrior side of things. He does in Revelation 19, but I haven't seen that. Nobody really has. But you'll find out he's really a nice guy, like super duper. Okay, you won't believe it. Well, you'll believe it, but you're not used to it. He's nice in the most minute details as well as the overall. He's just really a great guy. Okay, so everything is, going to be there. And then, of course, are you going to have to worry about, did they twist this translation? Of course not. The word made flesh will be right there with you. So you got the 270s, Daniel 9:24, 70 weeks is incorrectly translated in every single Hebrew manuscript. It says 70s, which means it's 270s for Israel. And then it describes what happens for them to finish working out this salvation. There's a 70-year period. It begins when he appears in the clouds. Okay? That's the beginning of the second 70. the sun goes dark and the moon turns to blood. The blood would indicate lots of sin. Okay. At the end of the second 70, you could read this in Joel chapter 2. The sun goes dark and the moon goes dark and the stars fail to give the light and fall. That's the return of Yeshua to earth. So the first 70, look, we could say Babylon 70-year captivity. Okay, let's look at it a different way. When did stuff start with Israel? Well, when Yeshua, I mean, for this reference point in time, when Yeshua was born and Herod was going crazy, killing all the babies, and it was bad, and they had to take him to Egypt, and they put him in a manger because he was the Lamb of God. Lamb, manger, got it? Okay. And before he went to Egypt, the Magi saw signs in the sky, and they followed him, and they came and brought gifts and worshiped the baby Yeshua, right? Okay, so it started when he was born. Started when he was born. Okay. Now, what happened 70 years later? You hit what they call 70 AD. Jerusalem was destroyed. Then the temple burned. Got it? Okay. That was the end of the first 70 AD. God gave them 70 years since starting when Yeshua appeared on earth. As a baby, he appeared on earth. The Magi knew something was up. They knew something was up, okay? Herod knew something was up. Okay, so it started, and then he gave them a 70-year run, and they didn't repent. They didn't change. They weren't bearing good fruit. Boom, they got destroyed. Then you got into Hosea 6:1 and 2, the 2,000-year punishment. And time's up. We're in recompenses now. So the end of the punishment, the recompenses is not normally the same as it is in the 2,000 years. In the 2,000 years, there's one thing now, this is payback. Okay, so the next 70 begins when Yeshua appears in the clouds and we have everlasting life. And you will see a falling away, a great falling away. You have to read Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11 to understand this with the abomination, desolation, and everything. But I expect we'll have a pretty good run till then. We'll have a lot of peace and joy and happiness. We'll have riches. You're not going to have to worry at all about money anymore. And you're not going to be, diseased, and you're not going to be rotting away. You're not going to have your hair fall out, your eyes go, your ears go, your knees go, your hips go, your ankles go, your stomach goes, you split, all this stuff's falling apart. It ain't going to be happening. You'll be like a kid again. You want me to estimate? I can't tell you what I'm basing it on because I don't think it's appropriate, but 21, 23, 24 years old, around there. I could be off by a couple of years, but that's what I'm telling you it'll be like for you. And you guys may understand what I'm going to say here. I don't think it'll be very unusual for a guy to go bench press 300 pounds or maybe even 500 pounds. That schmuck Schwarzenegger was able to press 500. Yeah. That he never promoted that because he was all into the bodybuilding. He didn't want people getting off on how strong he was. But that jackass was probably shooting 3 different steroids every day. They found a jerk that his body was able to tolerate all the steroids, where other people probably would have just dropped dead. So he was a real piece of work, that goofball. Worship your own body. That was his message. So, I don't understand how you could do that, but he did it in essence. But anyway, you'll be probably quite strong, and I think you'd probably be able to run from the Galilee to Elat. You might have to run through the night, but you might be able to do that. Elijah did things like that. He outran chariots. How about that? He had enough strength to kill hundreds of Jezebel's priests. He was beheading them. Do you know how much work that is? I mean, I don't want to get too graphic, but you don't just walk over and, take your sword and go like that. I mean, it's a big effort. And to keep repeating it. And do you think these guys just knelt down and said, okay, make it a good quick blow, Elisha? I mean, it was a lot of work. You'll have that kind of energy. Not that I'm saying you should be going out and killing hundreds of people by beheading them, but if you live far away from the temple, you'd probably be able to easily walk to the temple, maybe walk through the night, but the night may not be dark. How about that? And and get to the temple. Not so bad, is it? No. You might also be able to hop on your camel. Remember, a double humper is better than a single humper, but they're both good. You could be nice to them, and they'll probably never be like a cat or a dog, but they will bond with you, and they will be nice to you, and they will like you more like the way a horse is. Donkeys can be, or a mule can be really, really very much liking you. A horse too. So you can make buddies with them. They're very tough. They don't have natural enemies. They could easily kick butt on a 125-pound mountain lion. I don't think the mountain lion would have a chance. Not a prayer. They pick them up and throw them far. I mean, they could easily throw the thing 10 or 12 feet, I think, maybe 20 feet with their mouth. And the mountain lion comes in for them. He's just going to grab them with his mouth and fling them. And then comes hoofs that are probably bigger than this, or at least this big, stomping on the thing. By the second or third stomp, the thing's gone. They're huge too. My mother used to take me to the Bronx Zoo when I was a little kid, and they used to load us up on camel. They had camel rides and elephant rides. And, I'm talking, I was probably 4, 5, 6 years old. I used to think it was great, right? So you went there, it was in the center of the zoo, near the lions area, and they had a big track. It was enclosed with a fence, and you probably had as much as 300 yards, something like that. And you would climb up. They had steps you went up, and there was a platform. And there was a guy there, or two of them, and they put you in a saddle on the camel. They put about 4 kids or 6 kids in it. Everybody was a little kid. I mean, and they put you in there, and they had a safety strap for you. And all the little kids are quiet. Whoa, I never rode on a camel before. What's this going to be like, And you don't know from nothing. You just sit there, and then the guy holds a bit to the camel, and he walks the camel around the track slowly, and then you get back, and he takes you off. I think once they did it twice. Maybe business was slow. I don't know. And then they very carefully get you off, and you get down, and you go back to your mother. Wow, yeah, you walked around and rode a camel. And the elephant is pretty much the same thing. Did they were in the same place? I don't remember. I can't recall too much about the elephant. I don't even know if it was an elephant. I remember they had like little donkey horses, I think. I'm not sure, but I do specifically remember the camel. That burned in my brain. But anyway, the double humper can put water in both humps, so he can go longer without water. But we're going to have streams in the desert, so I don't know how pressing that is. And he can eat more food than the single humper, and he's a little bigger and stuff like that. So, it's up to you what you want to do. It's a little frightening because you're quite high up in the air. I mean, with a horse, you're up in the air. That's a little bit, wow, I'm high up. but it's more extreme with a camel and an elephant again. So the camel is can run as fast as a racehorse, but much longer distance. So he'd outrun the racehorse because the racehorse would peter out and he wouldn't. The camel is quite an item or a critter. If you get them mad, they spit at you. A big gobby ball of what hitting you is not a lot of fun. So I don't know why they would spit at you. If you were their master, you'd probably never have them spit at you. You'd just be nice to them and they'd be real happy with you. I guess. Maybe if they got a child and it's a girl camel and then if you were going to walk with her to carry a load or something someplace, you'd probably want to tie her baby to her so so the baby walks with her so she's happy, she knows where the baby is. She'd be fine like that. Yeah, so that's what you got. Anyway, they're going to bring us the animals, the nations. They're going to bring us the Brahmin bulls and those expensive things. They're going to bring us the finest horses, the expensive race horses and all that. And they'll bring us the camels. And I don't read about us using elephants. The unicorns are, a lot of people think they're rhinos with the one horn. I don't know what you would want to do with a rhino. I don't think they'll work for you. I don't know. I don't know what's a rhino gonna do. Probably be a pretty good watchdog. Even a grizzly bear wouldn't want to start a fight with a rhino. Their horns are like this, and they hit you with the horn and they throw you up in the air. It's, you got a hole in you like that. I don't know. So we'll all be taking the land back. And then we got the rebuilding, but the nations will be coming here because their nations are destroyed. And they'll be more than happy to stay here as some kind of servant or slave. Probably more in the slave genre or something like that. Indentured servant. I don't have the relationship. The word, I can't pin it for sure, the word slave is, but they'd be probably very happy to live there. They'd be well treated. We're plenty wealthy, plenty of food. It'd be like the prodigal son. He's sitting there feeding the pigs carob, and he can't even eat it himself, and he's quite hungry. He says, I'm better off working for my father and having plenty of food to eat. And they're going to say, I'm better off working for my father. In other words, being a servant for Israel and having plenty to eat. And we'll have to see. So, what are we looking forward to? Iran biting kicking the bucket, and I think then we're going to see Edom go. Maybe not, maybe yes. And then we'll see at some point Syria will be Damascus will be a ruinous heap, and Elijah will appear and Enoch will be around, and then we'll see Apostle John and then the anointed prince. Those are probably the four horns. And imagine hanging out with Apostle John, asking him questions about the Bible. Remember, he had the real Bible, no translation errors, and he hung with Yeshua. He knows all this stuff, and he saw so many visions. and he'll sit there and tell you the vision, and then you could ask him questions about the vision, and he'll answer them. How about them apples? Huh? What about Enoch? Asking him questions, that'd be pretty cool, you know. Or just listening to what they want to tell you. That would be pretty cool. And then there'll be the gifts of the Spirit. We'll have those. I probably all have all of them. And maybe not. Maybe just, I don't know. It can vary. We'll see. So I don't see Trump just pulling out. He might try it. It doesn't matter. If he tries it, someone else will destroy evil. Iran. It doesn't matter. But I'm not seeing Trump taking that direction. He wants that oil. He's not going to get it, but he wants it. That's maybe the snare. He wants to grab that oil. And that means he's got to get rid of the government, the existing government today in Iran, and he's got to get rid of their missile launch capability, or he can't get nothing, because they'll fire missiles at any military he tries to bring in to Iran. So he's got to get rid of the missile launch capability. And that's their goal, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do about that. And that's what I got for today. So let's get a prayer out. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, for us. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers in their households. I pray we all have your strength, stamina, and endurance. I pray from you we have your healing and recuperative power flowing through us. I pray for us and our animals and pets to be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I pray for us to have adequate finances and then some. If any of us need work like a job, we get it. If any of us need work like self-employed, we get it. If any of us need more clients and customers for our business or ourselves, we get them. Please pray that packages get delivered. My wife needs some herbs. We're waiting for the thing. And other packages, pray they get delivered, and pray for us to understand the scriptures better. And I do better videos, and I submit that B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can pray and agree with that if you're a believer. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and thanks, guys. I'm out. I hope you got something out of it.